All right, welcome and good afternoon, good evening to everyone, wherever you are. My name is Jacob Groshek. I'm the founder and commissioner of the Newton Area Flag Football League, and we're here tonight kicking off our very first video podcast with Ian Gallaugher, who is the field director and player coordinator of the Newton Area Flag Football League, otherwise known as NAFFL. Ian, you want to say hello and introduce yourself?
Yeah, good to be here, Jacob. Thanks for having me on. I've been coaching the NAFFL since the very first season. I've been the past year I was more involved as you mentioned, field director and in charge of player personnel as well. I coach in the oldest two divisions, the 7th and 10th grade and the 6th grade division. I've also been helping out some other tasks around the league with setting up rosters in the fields and stuff. So I'm really I love the league. It's been going great so far. It's been really expanding, growing, and I really enjoy coaching it. And I'm looking forward to seeing it get even bigger and better in the years to come.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks for that. And you've obviously been an integral part of the whole program since it started. So we're happy to have you here. And I think it would go without saying if I didn't inform our audience that you are probably one of our most successful coaches. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I'm sure you would know. How many Super Bowls have you appeared in and how many championships have you won?
So I got 2 Super Bowl rings, and I'm 2-3 in the big game overall. So I've got 5 appearances, 2 wins. I think I've only had 1 losing season that very first year. My team was all 5th graders in the 5th to 8th grade division.
Okay.
But I've had a lot of success coaching mostly just the top 2 divisions. There's 1 year I coached I think it was 4th to 5th or something like that. I was the Chiefs. But generally I like coaching those older kids because you can do a lot more with the play calling and stuff. Generally pretty successful. I had the Patriots and the Colts this past year, Patriots and Cowboys this past year. And both made the Super Bowl, both only had 1 loss, and the Patriots won it all. So.
All right. Well, congratulations. So maybe you could just tell us a little bit more about your own background. How did you get involved in flag football? How did you, learn the strategies that you learned? And hopefully over the coming weeks, we'll have a chance to pick your brain and have you provide some resources for, people who are new to the league or other coaches just around flag football who are looking to learn from some of the best.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'm sure that'd be really helpful. Would have been helpful to me too when I started out. So I had a bit of knowledge coming in because I had played flag football in the past. That's the thing. I used to play in a league in Westwood. I think it's called Bay State Flag Football League. I believe it's still around. I played basically from 4th grade through I think ninth grade. Yeah, it was the last year I could play in that one. So I played for a while. I played quarterback a couple of years. Usually I was the oldest or second oldest. And I remember my last 2 years, the coaches just let me call all the plays. So I would huddle everyone up, call a play, and then we'd run it. And so I basically had some experience there in terms of actually coaching. I didn't draw up the plays, I didn't run practices, but I took a more advanced role in the team as a leader, as playing quarterback, and as kind of huddling people up and telling them what to do. So I had been involved with the game for a while. I've always loved football. It's always been my favorite sport. And basically from a young age, I played Madden all the time. I followed the NFL draft a lot. That's one thing I really enjoyed. And I've always been more a fan of the game itself, the sport of football, rather than I'm a huge Patriots fan, but it's always been more about the sport and loving the game and the competition of it and the strategy of it, rather than like just rooting for one specific team. So I've kind of, I've always enjoyed this type of stuff. And then throughout high school, I tried to get more involved. I started coaching for Thundercat Sports, which is kind of a summer camp, sports camp type thing. They do some flag football as well as multi-sports. Really just more of a summer camp, though, than in terms of actually coaching guys. And then when Jacob, I had also coached with me at one of those Thundercat camps. I think it was every Friday at Mason Rice after school, that type of thing. And then he told me he was starting up a flag football league. And I thought, this would be a great opportunity for me to actually do some real coaching instead of just kind of babysitting people through the Thundercat stuff. But I mean, I really enjoyed it. But coming into the first game, I had no experience coaching flag football whatsoever, other than playing it myself and having a bit of experience there. But I just kind of learned as I went along. Just thinking about stuff. As with anything else, the more effort you put into it, the more you'll get out of it. So I learned by experience. You look at my very first playbook; it's going to be very different from what it is today. And so, the best piece of advice I can give you is just to learn from your mistakes. I mean, the games where I've kind of adjusted my strategy the most and the way I approach the game is my losses. Because if you're winning every game, and I've won a lot of games, but if it's a win, then you kind of don't really reevaluate anything. You just see your players are working well, and there could be issues there if they don't get exposed. So I can just think of a couple games off the top of my head. Like I know one, I think it was 2 years ago with my Jaguars team, coming off a big Super Bowl win. We kind of swept through the league. We only lost one game, the very first game against your team actually, and then we were pretty much unstoppable after that. And then that's coming in that next year, we played this one team, the Bucks, which had two really good players, and they beat us pretty badly by over 20. And so that really got me to rethink things. I realized that some of the plays I was running, some of the things we were doing, were just working based on the talent of my team compared to the other ones, rather than the strategy. There were some issues there. So I reevaluated. We still ended up losing those guys in the Super Bowl, but it was way closer, only lost by 6. So you can't choose the players on your team. I've had good teams, I've had bad teams. So the very first year I had the Colts, we were probably we had only 5th graders. We were playing against 8th graders. I know Jacob's team that year, you guys were really good. I think won the Super Bowl. And when we went up against you, we were never going to win that game. The only thing you can evaluate as a coach is how are we at the beginning of the year and how are we at the end, and are we getting better? And that's what I try to do with my team every year. Just look at what can I do to make these guys better, to help them learn the game, to improve their skills. And that's really all you can control. So just focus on getting better, on improving and learning from your mistakes. And you're going to make mistakes. I made plenty. It's just about putting that time in. And if you do that, if you think about this stuff and you work at it, you're going to get better, as with anything else.
Right. So I think that's definitely good advice. I mean, and I think for anyone out there who's considering coaching and is a little worried about not having a lot of experience, and I'll just echo your sentiment as well. When I first started coaching flag football, I never even played flag football when I was growing up. It was not really a sport. I mean, we had 2-hand touch on the playground, but when my son was coming up, I think he was 6 years old, first grader, and I had a chance to coach in flag football, and I didn't really know what to expect or what to do, but pretty soon you learn the ropes and you get into a good mindset of what works and what doesn't. And you're right. I think you learn a lot from the team you have. And I think that's kind of one of the key points for me, is like always trying to build a team or your play calling around the strengths that you have. Right. So maybe you could just say a quick word there about one. I would ask, like, how do you think the game of flag football is different strategy-wise from tackle football? But 2, how do you think you go about building a cohesive team unit? And I ask because I know your teams have come together and they've gelled, and you've really been able to, I think, maximize the strengths of your team, even when they're, some of the younger players in a division, but still typically very successful.
Sure, yeah. So on that first point, I think flag football personally is the most strategy-oriented sport, probably of any youth sport. I'd say even including tackle football. And the reason why is on every play, you're calling a play as the coach. You're directly involved in what your players are going to do. You compare it to something like soccer. I played soccer a lot growing up. My coaches would basically call it a formation, like this is where you line up. And then it's really up to you as to what you're going to do from there. It's not as involved coaching. There's a lot of technical stuff. Baseball, you can call maybe steal a base, pitching changes, stuff like that, pinch hitters. But there's not as much strategy as flag football because it's really every play. I'd say it's even more so than Pop Warner. I never coached Pop Warner, so I can't say for sure. But my idea would be you're playing on that big of a field with that shorter kids, that younger kids. You're not going to have great quarterbacks. You're not going to be running NFL-style plays. Just because it's such a big field, you're probably running the ball a lot, and it's probably just the bigger team's going to be winning. In flag football, it's a condensed field. It's 5-on-5. And I've been able to run really like pro-style concepts. Like when I'm looking up the plays I'm going to run, this type of stuff I'm going to do, I look to the NFL, I look to professional football to see, because you can run similar defenses, you can run similar offenses. It's not perfect. There's no offensive line, stuff like that. But the passing game especially, you run zone defense, you run man defense, and it's similar to at least very basic elements of, a real NFL or at least college-style defense. At least at the very basic level. You could see something you have at Madden, something like that, where it's very basic. Cover 2, you got 2 deep safeties and 2 corners, something like that. That's why I love flag football, is because it's much more related to actual football, to actual play calling. The strategy is really important. On every play, I'm calling a play, I'm calling an offense, or I'm calling a defense. And that's going to actually impact the game much more than I think you could in any other sport. So that's kind of what draws me to the game versus other sports, is really that strategy element to it. And I think it helps kids as well. If you've got a kid and you're thinking about, I'm going to play him in Pop Warner or flag football, if you've already got some reservations about Pop Warner, I'd say probably you'd think the pro for it would be, well, you're playing actual football, you're learning the game more. I'd say, especially if they're a skill position player, I think they'd get more out of flag football. If you've got a quarterback or something like that, like I teach guys how to read defenses, how to go through a progression, things like this, that at Pop Warner, you may just be handing the ball off a ton because that's the game plan. That's how they play it there. So I think you could even get more out of flag football than Pop Warner in terms of the strategy element, in terms of play calling, because on that condensed field, on that 5-on-5 game, it's basically like kind of like a 7-on-7 for older guys at the high school level, where you're focusing more on play calling and you're focusing more on the passing game, on defenses, on the plays. And I think you'll learn that, and then you'll play that on a bigger field when you got the arm strength to actually do that. So on that point, that's what I'd say in favor of flag football, in favor of the strategy element from a coaching standpoint, and from a parent standpoint. Is my kid actually going to learn football? I think they will. I think they will at a high level. And so I'd say that. Your second question as to how you build a team, yeah, that's so important, and it really does make a difference because some years you'll have teams that are really good. I've had some really good teams. There's been some bad teams, and some games are going to be blowouts. There's always at least two good teams every division. It's going to come down to a big game at the end, and it's how do you make use of your entire team. There's going to be star players on every team. How do you make use of the rest of your team is going to decide it. And so I'll just go back to this last year. The Patriots, I won the Super Bowl in the oldest division. What I had is this one star player, either the best or second best player in the year. He's dominant. And the rest of my team, they're all seventh graders. It's 7th to 10th grade. So, I've got this one star 10th grader. How am I going to use the rest of my players and build, a cohesive team that's still going to win games? It's about figuring out what everyone does well rather than what they can't do well, and putting them in a system such that the parts add up to a greater whole. So if you've got one guy who's a good quarterback, maybe not the best athlete, that can still really help your team, because a quarterback's probably one of the most important positions on the field, and now you're putting the ball in the hands of that one star player you got, because the quarterback can't run, something like that. If a guy can snap the ball, I mean, that's important. It's the overlooked position, but the center is important. I've lost games actually on bad snaps. I think I won even a playoff game, went to overtime. We lost it because there was a bad snap. So that's important. Even a guy's playing up close to the line of scrimmage and he's just a really good flag puller. That's important. That helps your team. Flag pulling is huge. And a lot of big games have come down to which team's pulling flags, which team isn't. If you guys just got good hands, but maybe isn't a great athlete, that helps you out. If you can catch the ball, you can get them open. Even if a guy isn't an all-star player, everyone's going to be able to do something that can help your team. It's about figuring out what they can do and how to get them to do that to make the whole team better. And especially if you've got that one-star player, it takes some of the pressure off the rest of the team. So if you got this one guy who's the other team's going to really focus on them, then the rest of your team's left more open, and they can more do what they can do better. So it's really about situationally. It's about understanding your team. It's about knowing every player's strengths and weaknesses, and devising a system that exploits their strengths and minimizes their weaknesses. So there's really no one-size-fits-all solution. I've run different plays, different teams. It's just about working throughout the season, trying to figure out what works well. The more you work at it, the more, if you run practices throughout the year, that'll definitely help too, to get you to know your team. But that is a huge point of it. It's as we tend to think of it as just focus on the star players, the top couple guys in the league, as really determining the games. And sometimes guys are good enough that they will. At the end of the day, it's a team sport, and it truly is, because a receiver is only as good as his quarterback. If they're not getting the ball to the guy, he's not going to be able to make plays. A quarterback's only as good as receivers if they're dropping passes. On defense, everyone has to be able to make big plays. The ball could be going in any direction. Everyone's got to be able to pull a flag, make a play on the ball. And if you're just relying on one guy, you're not going to win it. And I think that's why the teams that have won the Super Bowl for me, it's been a real team effort. It's been every single guy on the team. I can point to one play they made throughout the year that helped us win the Super Bowl. The teams that have lost maybe haven't been like that. So it's really important to focus on your entire team and see that everyone can do something that can help you win games. Because if you're just focusing on a couple guys, I guarantee you're not going to win it at the end of the year.
Yeah, that's definitely really good. I think sound advice, very inspirational too. I guess I know we're going to save a little bit more of the in-depth strategy for some later sessions, but as you were talking, I just kind of have to wonder if you have sort of a rule of thumb or a general practice you go to in terms of substitutions. Now, normally, I think you would know, and most of the folks listening would know, it's 5-on-5, and usually our teams have roughly 10 players. So do you do substitutions, offense, defense, or do you create, like, let's say 2 different squads of 5 and you just rotate them in and out? Or what do you think's the most efficient way to approach that?
Yeah, I'm more likely to do the second because both guys are going to like to play offense and defense. You're going to want to play both sides of the ball. So, if I got 10 players on the team, it's easy to just split them into 5-and-5. You're usually going to want to give your better players a little more playing time, especially for big games, things like that. So you can have some guys play for both groups. It's easy. So say if you have less than 10, if you got 9 players, you can have one player play for both groups, so play the whole game, and then you have 2 groups of 4. And everyone still plays half the game. It's easy for the players, okay, you're in group 1, you're in group 2. When it's group 1's on, you're playing, and then they're playing. Everyone else gets equal playing time. You still get your better players that extra bit of playing time, and so on. If you have 8 players, 2 get to play all game, and so on and so forth. You got more than 10, it gets a little trickier because you got the majority of your team sitting on the bench. That's always tough, especially younger kids. They're going to want to get on the field. So it's tougher to give guys extra playing time, but you can even have a group with more than 5. So say if you have 12 players on the team, you have 2 groups of 6, and just rotate one in every play. So I usually split the team up into 2 groups. I decide if I want anyone to play for both groups. If I think it's a big game for us, we just don't get that much playing time. And I try to equal out the playing time from everyone else. So I never try to say, like you're our worst player, you're going to get less playing time. You're not going to want to do that to kids. And then playing, that's just not the spirit of the event. So I try to give, if I'm going to alter the playing time at all, it's giving more playing time to your top players rather than taking away from your bottom players. So I decide who I want to play for both groups, and then everyone else is just in a group and they're getting equal playing time. And at that way, it'll make it fair for everyone. Everyone will be involved. And again, if you want everyone on your team to be involved, or you're not going to win these big games, because I guarantee you, everyone on that team can give you something that someone else can't. So, and if you're focusing on just a couple players throughout the year, they're getting most of your playing time. Other guys are just riding the bench. When you get into the playoffs and the Super Bowl, teams are going to be able to take away your star players. So if you're relying on them all year, that's not going to work anymore. And so I've seen teams fall apart when you can take away their star player and they don't know what to do. So you're going to want to get everyone at least good playing time. I try to get equal playing time for almost everyone. And if you're going to not do that, get more playing time for your top players rather than taking away from everyone. So I like the 2 groups.
Definitely good strategy. So maybe just another kind of question in terms of practical strategy about how often do you practice between games? Once a week, twice a week, and about for how long?
Yeah, I try to do once a week with each of my teams. So if I coach 2 teams, I usually try to get 2 practices in individually, so you can focus on particularly what that team needs to work on. For the team you're playing next week, I like to think about that. Do I know if they have any star players we're going to want to think about? Do I know what defense they like to play? If there are any particular players I want to run against them? We can get into more of that later. But I like to have 1 practice for each team, and sometimes I'll do a scrimmage between the 2 because they're both older kids. You'll probably have to split up a bit, if I've got a 7th, 10th versus 6th. But it's all up to you. However much time you can manage. I'd suggest at least 1 practice. I'd usually only go 1. I haven't seen the need to do more than 1 for a single team. I usually do one practice about an hour. I decide it towards the beginning of the year so parents know what to expect. I usually send out a survey or just an email that says, what days work best for you. I decide on, say, Mondays from 5 to 6, something like that. Whatever works for people, and then just keep doing that every week so people can get into a routine. But practicing definitely helps. And it definitely helps if you know what your team needs to work on, particular skills like flag pulling, catching, route running. You drill those down in practice. It also works on running the plays. Because, again, football, unlike other positions, you really need to know the play. You need to run a play on every play, on offenses particularly. And if guys don't know what they're doing, your team's going to fall apart. It's not just kind of like baseball where everyone knows how to throw, everyone knows how to hit. You need to actually work on what you're going to do in the games beforehand. So it may just be coming to the game a little early and working on stuff, but I definitely advise a practice. And in my experience, the better teams practice more often. So I do it a little once a week.
Yeah. Good advice. Well, I know this season, of course, is on hold because of the COVID-19 crisis. But and this is just kind of a for fun sort of question out there. I mean, what do you see maybe just down the line, like in terms of the future of flag football versus tackle football? I mean, I know Russell Wilson, maybe you saw, is now the
Yeah, yeah.
chairman of NFL Flag, and there's been a big push to like cultivate that and develop it. I mean, what do you think the future looks like?
Yeah, well, what's really interesting is I'm looking at the NFL flag and kind of the tournaments they run, and they have their national championships too. I watch those. I think that on ESPN even or something like that
Hmm. Hmm.
around break, winter break. And I was really impressed by the level of competition, by the type of stuff people do, and some of these players, like from past years. I think actually the Patriots' first round pick last year, N'Keal Harry, when he was like 12 or something, competed in the national championships.
Is that right?
So yeah, there's legitimate players competing. Some
Hmm.
guys are going to be top prospects going to D1 players going to be playing when they're kids NFL flag national championships. I think they've got a 10U, a 12U, a 14U division. I think now they're adding an 8U as well. So I think that shows that well, flag is growing, and even at the highest levels of competition, where you think, well, you're not going to play flag, you'll play Pop Warner. Well, now they actually are playing flag, and I think that goes to what I talked about earlier. There are some real benefits to it. Having that condensed field, having the 5-on-5 style, you get rid of the offensive lines. It really lends itself to a more strategy-oriented game. You can really work on more advanced play calling and stuff like that. You just can't do on a bigger field with kids who aren't NFL type players. So I think the flag is going to improve in that aspect at the highest level, and that I think it's a real alternative for people to Pop Warner, or in addition to Pop Warner, to focus on specific things that they'll be doing in the big leagues at a larger stage in tackle football down the line, even as kids. I think in general as a sport, I think it can definitely rival things like little league, like soccer, whatever the youth soccer program is, because I mean everyone loves football. It's probably the most popular sport in the country.
I think so, yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
and then there's not a clear. I mean, I don't know. Everyone doesn't do Pop Warner. I think you're going to talk about what sport do kids do when they're younger. It's probably Little League is the most popular. Or around here, I don't know, soccer is really popular.
Yeah.
Well, so what's the football alternative to that? There's a lot of people who have an actual issue with Pop Warner, with especially as kids doing more, more head-on collisions. That they're playing a more contact-oriented sport, and that's an issue for parents. I think flag football is only going to get more popular, and it also doesn't have to be instead of Pop Warner. Plenty of people
Yeah.
can do both.
Hmm.
We try to plan our season around the different type of sports leagues that are around Little League and soccer and Pop Warner, and it's very easy to do both. We also have fall and spring season, so you can play flag pretty much whenever. You can play indoors even, and it's a legitimate sport. It's basically it's there are a lot of similarities to football, especially except for the tackling portion. I've said already, it's even some in some areas it's more relevant to full on
So do
tackle
you
football
think
than
there
Pop Warner
will,
could be.
sorry to interrupt, do you
Yeah.
think there will come a time where, let's say, flag football replaces tackle football at the, say, NCAA, NFL type of level? Like, do you think we'll see the evolution go that far?
At the highest level, I don't know. I wouldn't say NCAA and NFL. I'd say probably younger kids it could. I wouldn't be
Hmm.
surprised. I think even in Newton, the middle schools are having middle school flag football instead of tackle football. I've read an article about that once. I don't know
Yeah.
exactly where
Yeah.
that's going, but I wouldn't be surprised. Definitely at that level, definitely at elementary, middle school level. I wouldn't be. I definitely would think schools would be looking more to flag football rather than tackle for those two different reasons I mentioned. First off, it's safer for the kids, it's less contact. And
Yeah.
secondly, more resembles the actual football they're going to be playing later on.
Hmm.
So I think there's those two benefits to it. And so, yeah, I'd expect it to get a lot bigger, particularly among younger kids at first. And then if that really catches on, maybe it'll get higher. I mean, I'm guessing there already is some type of professional flag football league. Maybe that'll get more popular as kids are playing it more at a younger age. I wouldn't expect it to ever overtake NCAA or the NFL, at least anytime soon. But I'd say right now the market is for younger kids, and right now
Yeah.
I think that's growing. I think the goal is to rival Little League, is to rival youth soccer, and
Hmm.
is to probably overtake Pop Warner. I could definitely see that happening. I think we're a
Hmm.
long way off to taking on the upper echelons, the NFL, the NCAA. But
Yeah.
among younger kids, I'd be I wouldn't be surprised at all if parents start looking at that as an alternative to tackle.
So I know our time's getting a little short here. Um, and I appreciate all your insights so far. So maybe I'll just wrap it up with one final thought from you. And I guess I don't remember off the top of my head if you've had a lot of experience coaching females in the league or not, but maybe you could just kind of give your thoughts as to what you think as far as like flag football being a co-ed sport and the opportunities for girls to be involved and make a contribution.
Yeah, that is another plus. I don't actually, off the top of my head, I don't think I've ever coached a female player, but there wouldn't be much of a difference, which is why for flag football it's different. I've seen that female players have had large impacts on other teams I've played. I think last fall, I lost the Super Bowl with the Packers in the 6th grade division. They had a female player, I think, scored the winning touchdown, and it was a really close game. So, it's definitely, it's not a game where there's as much of a difference between males and females, and it really is a co-ed sport and really can be, particularly for those younger kids. So yeah, I think I wouldn't be surprised if I think we're already seeing it somewhat at the high school level, that flag football is becoming a girl sport at the high school level to rival boys football, tackle football. So yeah, I think maybe that's an area where there could be a professional women's flag football league. I could see something like that not to rival the NFL, but to be like the female alternative, like the WNBA or something like that. So yeah, I think that's where it particularly would be of importance, is that there's been no, female Pop Warner or female alternative to. There's Little League, there's softball, there's boys and girls soccer. I think flag football can definitely step up there. I think it may be seeing all girls leagues throughout the country, things like that.
Yeah, we've seen some leagues around the area here, I think, that are starting some girls leagues in particular, like in the area.
Yeah, I'd say for sure. That's definitely, I mean, I think that those are the areas to expand most clearly, I think, are young kids, and also with girls and women. That's one of the advantages of flag versus tackle, particularly for those demographics, and I'd expect it to expand in the coming years.
All right, good. Well, any last words before we call it a night?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed talking about this stuff and seeing the league grow over the years. And yeah, I'm looking forward to doing more episodes and get more into the strategy and stuff.
Yeah. I think that would be great. And yeah, let's just kind of hope we can sustain through this period of time where we're not able to be on the field. So hopefully we can continue to build and provide some valuable resources to our community all around. And I think we'll wrap it up here. Thanks again, Ian, for your time, and continue to be in touch, and have a great night.
Yeah, thanks. You too. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. Bye-bye.